Welcome and greetings, Monster Maniacs, to another creature feature. And this time around on Monsters of Rock the Lordy story, I, Matthew Kessie, will guide you through Seward's Hall. Along the way, a passage of stone gargoyles we will pass, where statues will come alive, while the tenants of this decrepit fortress shall hiss and seethe as we stalk and slink into the Lord's Keep, where we shall dine with and be feasted upon by our Count Draculov, or as he's known in these parts, the Pale Pastor Mana, as we hear from the Cutterfly about Screem Writers Guild.
The last time we spoke through an interview was quite a while ago. It would have been just before Lord of
10 years ago.
Yeah. So I'd say just maybe the summer before Lord of Mercy released, I think, was when we spoke last, and quite a lot has happened in Lordy since then. And I'm wondering, from your side of things and from your experience, how would you summarise the last 18 months to 2 years in Lordy?
18 months. Well, yeah, we have a new guitar player in the band, but I guess you already kind of covered it up in the last podcast. But yeah, things have changed a lot. So we have a new guy in the band, so yeah. And the sound has changed in the band and the chemistry and all. So in some way it feels like it's a new band in a way.
Yeah,
it's like it changed so much, and you can really hear it on the new album as well. It's like newborn Lordy, so to speak. Yeah. Although the songs are pretty much the same as the old stuff, but yeah.
And I think, because there was, from talking to everybody in the band, seems to be a lot of positivity at the moment, because I know when Lord of Mercy released, there was a kind of a bit of hesitation. Everyone was not, I guess, too happy with everything that was going on inside the band at that time. And with obviously Kone coming in, it brings in a new energy, it brings in a new person who kind of changes the dynamic in the band, offers something new as well in terms of his guitar work. And for you, when you kind of met Kone for the first time, what was your first reaction, or did you kind of know him before he kind of came into the band?
Yeah, he was a friend of mine, so to speak. I knew the guy, and I was the one who kind of, I said to Mr. Lordy that I know a guy who is really, really good guitar player, and I think you should call him and see if you hook up with him, like on mental level, so to speak. And yeah, obviously he's a young guy. He brings a lot of energy, even with being a young guy with old guys like us. So that's everything's great at the moment.
Oh, that's good. And I think even when you were saying you can hear it on the record, you really can, because the solos are so dynamic in many ways, and they are longer in this album than they were previously in the other albums as well. And obviously I think that's because you give him a kind of a lot more flexibility, because obviously in the past things were different in terms of the guitar work because of Eamonn's involvement. And
sure.
Yeah.
He's a different guy. He has a much more technical approach to the playing, and it's like with Kiss when they fired Ace Frehley and got Vinnie Vincent. This is like the same kind of change. And don't get me wrong, I really like Ace Frehley's playing, and I really did like Eamonn's playing. It's just with Kone, it just opens new worlds to us that we can do. We have an actual guitar hero in the band in that technical sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you were just saying there about Eamonn, his departure for a lot of of fans was quite surprising, but I guess for you guys, you especially and Mr. Lordy, you guys kind of seen it coming in many ways, and that it kind of needed to happen as well for the chemistry in the band. So when Mr. Lordy called you and you spoke about Eamonn leaving, how did you react to that, and what was your response?
It was really sad. It was a really sad moment because he had been in the band as long as I've been in the band, and I've seen how the things like slowly went downhill with him, and then it got to the point that it was just impossible to go on. So that was really a sad day. And for Mr. Lordy, of course, especially because he had been with him like 25 years or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really sad. And of course, we had to move on pretty fast. It was like day after the day that he got fired. It's like the next day almost that we had to think about the new guy in the band. So have to move quick forward. We can't stay lying down.
No. And with obviously that, because you guys, when you got Kone into the band, you were pretty much just about to start recording the new album. Not too long after him kind of coming in. When he kind of came in and you started working on Screem Writers Guild, the album is kind of a more traditional Lordy album. There's not as much kind of, I guess, experimentation as in with Lordiversity and with Collection. So did this album offer for you as both a producer and also as a drummer, did it offer any new challenges to you in any way?
Well, I guess we were so exhausted with the Lordiversity thing that this was like a relief. Yeah, let's just do a basic, straightforward Lordy album this time. And we didn't actually have that much time either to like think about something new or revolutionary, kind of things. So let's just go with the regular stuff.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lordy got really, we liked the Humanimals album a lot. So we got kind of stuck in that mode, making that kind of music, like the 80s stuff, the melodic thing. And it was the most easy for Mr. Lordy to write at that moment. So that's how the style was decided. And for drumming, it's the basic Lordy stuff. Nothing new, nothing fancy. Yeah. And the recordings were made the same way that we did most of the Lordiversity albums, that I did the drum recordings by myself at the rehearsal place, and Kone and Easy went to Mr. Lordy's place and they recorded most of the bass and guitar parts there. We did the so-called easy way.
Yeah, and with you on this album, you're executive producer again for it, and I guess for a lot of fans, there are people that might not be too musically inclined. They might not know exactly what that job title means, or what that actually
producer.
Yeah, what does as an executive producer in the Lordy world do?
Well, in the Lordy world, it means that me and our A&R Janne Halmkrona, we were the executive producers, which actually meant that mixing the album, we were kind of the guys who had the quality control, responsibility for the overall sound, as well as the track order and stuff like that. And we even did some arrangements, even after the recordings. We kind of thought that there were some parts that are too long, and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was our responsibility that the album as a whole sounds as it should. It's like a full album, not just focusing on one song or one part of songs, so that it works.
Okay. And with, I guess you talked about kind of the length of songs there. With this album is kind of different in some ways because it doesn't start with a Scarlet Circle Gathering or SCG at the start. We have Dead Again Jane, which kind of has a long intro to it, and then after that we get into the Nusfar Ruiz show after that. So when you were kind of looking at the track order in this album, was it hard to kind of place which songs, because it seems to be a lot of the intros can kind of be long in this to kind of set up the atmosphere of particular tracks, so was it hard to kind of balance that out?
So the intros that is pretty much like Mr. Lordy's thing. I don't really really know about those, especially that thing in the cage intro with the throat singing. I don't know what he was thinking about. Maybe he was like, okay, this might be cool. I can do these weird voices, so maybe I do a little song or something. And of course, it adds more minutes to the album. Maybe it was too short, so we had to do a lot of intros. Yeah.
Okay. And on this record as well, we have the first, I guess, in a long time where every single member in the band is doing backing vocals on this album. And for you obviously work and trying to help kind of arrange those, and to obviously as in an executive producer role as well. And how does that process kind of work from start to finish when you're working on backing vocals, from recording to placing them in the song, or figuring out what vocals kind of need to be used as backing vocals? How does that work?
Well, actually, the backing vocals are pretty much done in the composing segment of making the album.
Okay.
Mr. Lordi he already has the backing vocal notes already arranged, but we of course we improvise in the studio still, and people throw out ideas. I usually have some weird chords that I want to use, but mainly it's Mr. Lordi, and of course there's Tracy Lip, who is the vocal coach, and he's also like producing the vocals at the same time.
Right. He
has a lot of good ideas. Okay. So it's a teamwork in the end.
Okay. And talking about teamwork, both you and Mr. Lordi wrote the music for Dead Again Jane on this album. So with that particular song in mind, what parts of it did you contribute to?
We were talking about like Mr. Lordi wanted like Kiss has on Animalized album the song I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, and on Asylum they have King of the Mountain, and on Lick It Up they have Exciter. We were talking about we need that kind of song, like the 80s Kiss. Yeah. Kiss albums had the opening songs, and I started to play around with riffs. And I think the main riffs are like some way the riffs that I wrote. They're like variations from those. Okay. So we wanted to copy Kiss as usual.
I think it worked anyway. Yeah. I do think it worked with that song.
Thank you. I really like the song. I think it's the best song of the album.
I actually
and
think
not just because I was in the writing process, but it really works.
Yeah. I even think like that and Borderline are probably the two best Lordi singles, I think, we've had. Yeah, I honestly do think so, because they're just the tempo of them, the speed, they're so dynamic, they're easy to listen to and catchy as well, so that's everything you need for a Lordi track, I always think so.
Sure.
Yeah. And obviously with this record for you, there's a large variety of tempos and rhythms in this record, probably the most varied traditional Lordi sounding album, I guess, kind of ignoring Collection and Lordiversity obviously, but on this album we have kind of more technical drumming on songs like Inhumanoid, and then the drum intro to Lycanthropical Island as well, and Dead Again Jane too. But then we have songs kind of with a slower tempo, like The Bride, Thing in the Cage, the Scarecrow. So it's quite varied for drumming, and so what I kind of like to know from your side of things is, how do you kind of approach recording the slower songs for a Lordi album? Do you enjoy them as much as the faster, more technical ones?
It's always about the mood of the song. If the mood is like subtle and slow, you can't really play that much in the song. Okay. It's like you have to give the space usually to Mr. Lordi's singing or guitar solos or whatever. I think the drummer's job is just to sit in the back and just keep the tempo kind of playing. Yeah. But of course, when we go to the much more metal, like faster music, then there's kind of has to have some sort of drum brilliance, so to say, like different technical fills and stuff like that. So it depends on the mood.
Okay. And do you enjoy it as much, or do you prefer when there's a little bit more flexibility for you?
It's all about the music. So it's all about the song. you shouldn't have to focus on your own instrument too much. You have to kind of think about what the song itself needs.
Yeah.
And play like that. It's not about my instrument or my drum fills or my kick drums. It's about the song as a whole, you know.
And look at the larger picture of things.
Yeah.
And with your costume this time around, it's a little bit, it veered on kind of Dracula, vampire look and everything like that, but obviously all the costumes are based on traditional characters from horror movies in many ways. And I know you don't really like horror movies that much, but do you have any kind of old school scary, like, do you have any favourite old school scary movies, or is there any kind of classical horror character that you like?
At this time it was like obvious choice that I would be the Dracula kind of character, because it's closest to the priest kind of guy that Mana really is. And somebody said that Mana looks like he has won the lottery now. And that's like, that's really well said. If you look at the costume, he got like 1 million euros. So he's going to buy some fancy clothes. So, there you go. There we have it.
And obviously with your costume that you're talking about there, the design is different from previous ones, but it's the first time you've had kind of shoulder pads or kind of a shoulder design, obviously with the ravens' heads this time around. But is that kind of tricky for you then? But when you're playing drums, you don't want anything kind of interfering with your movements. So was that kind of a tricky thing to kind of work around, that you could have it but it wasn't going to interfere with your live performance?
Well, at first we had an idea, or at least I had an idea, that I would have feathers on my shoulders, like Paul Stanley did back in the 70s. But that was like, that would have been too difficult, especially in the tours when the costumes get shitty and things will fall apart. And so I think Mr. Lordy was the guy who got the raven idea to the shoulders, and they're really light and easy. They're not in the way at all, so it works.
It does work.
And it kind of adds more like, it looks like I have shoulders, which is good. I look bigger.
Yes, yeah. I think actually
not just a lottery winner, but a bigger lottery winner. Yeah.
And obviously, as you're speaking, you're at the rehearsal loft now. You're kind of getting ready for the Sabaton tour starting next week. So there's a lot kind of coming up in Lordy's future. So is there anything that kind of you're really excited for coming up in the next few months?
Yeah, this tour is really exciting to get on the road with Sabaton. We have big arenas only, and a lot of new audience. Hopefully they like us. It's really exciting. Also really stressful at the moment, that it is always before the tour to get stuff done and all the things working and rehearsing with the songs. It's kind of good. We had a record release show at Malta last weekend, so we got a real rehearse there. so let's hope things work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's happy times.
Exactly, yeah. Lots to look forward to. And kind of just before we kind of finish up, I sent out kind of a question for fans to kind of ask, to send in their questions for you. So I've got a few of them to kind of go through. I've only got 3 or 4. But the first one, just like the last time we did this, is actually from Hisi. So and you might know what he wants to say. He wants to say, hello again. How about now? Should we go and practice?
Hello, Easy. I'm waiting for you as always. You're always late, so be on time. Thank you.
And Rissan Topi wants to know, what is the hardest Lordy song to play live?
Hardest Lordy song? Well, I think at the moment it's Abracadabra.
Oh, nice.
It's a sweaty fucking job with the double kick shit.
Yeah.
So I hope I will never have to play that one again.
The next one comes from Mark Virus 123, and they want to know, how did you master the double bass technique, and what's the best thing to train to keep your condition?
You just have to practice and practice. There's no other way. You just start slow, and then then like speed up. That's the only thing, and I haven't really mastered it yet myself either, so it's a lifelong process.
Yeah. Seth wants to know, why did you choose Evans Onyx as your new drum skins?
Evans drum skins? No, I don't.
Oh.
I don't use them.
Okay.
I use Remo pinstripes.
Right.
And Controlled Sound X on the snare.
Okay.
That's my choice of weapon.
Perfect. And Jeranumi wants to know, what is your go-to snare drum?
Go-to snare drum. Let me check what I use now. Just one moment. I have a Tama snare. It's a metal, some sort of alloy thing. Can't remember the model, but I can check it out because it's right here. Tama Starphonic. Fucking love it. It's 6-inch deep, 14-inch wide.
Okay.
It's great.
Well, beasts and beastettes, that was Mana. And I'm sure his presence and insight brought you much pain and discomfort. For now, I will bid you adieu, and next week I will bring you on another journey in the darkened kingdom that can be found in Screem Writers Guild. But until then, Hevasti Kusipat.
Monsters of Rock, The Lordy Story is a true metal podcast production. The show is presented, produced and written by Matthew Kessie. Head to True Metal Pod's social channels to keep up to date with the production.